All right, so I've got 8:30. I'm going to go ahead and get going here. Can everyone hear me okay? All right, good deal. First off, I commend you for getting here this early and coming to the very first talk at 8:30, so thank you for getting up and being here. This talk, we're going to talk about the end of mobile apps. That's a very big ultimatum. We're going to end everything and all go start writing ASP.NET Core Blazor WebAssembly PWAs. That's a mouthful. Joking aside, I'll tell you why I think mobile apps are going to be a thing of the past here really quickly, and why our company's actually started to make that transition with our clients. So the agenda here, we're going to be talking about native, hybrid, cross-platform apps that are finally no longer needed. So we'll start just a little bit of history here with the cross-platform mobile race. Not much, just enough to get you excited here. We'll take a deeper dive into PWAs, and then jump into our star, Blazor WebAssembly. And if I've not met you yet, I'm Heath. I know it's really early. Please stop by. I work for CGI. We have a pretty big booth here, pretty big group of talented people here with us. So come over, say hi. I'm a VP, meaning I don't get to write code anymore. So this is my hobby, nights, weekends, when I get to do this stuff and come out and talk about it here. I'm this old. So this is 23, maybe even 24 years old. Wurfel was around for just a brief period of time. You probably don't know what that is, but show of hands. Who remembers when SourceForge actually had code you wanted to download and it was cool and there wasn't GitHub at the time? Don't go there now. Probably more spyware than anything. I have a 10 out of 10 lawn. This is no joke. I'm not sure what that says about me. Probably that I'm a dad. I've got dad jokes, but actually the dad joke guy is up there somewhere. But I was testing grass, so this is a couple years ago in the house. I was testing it before I planted that next year. I have an unhealthy fascination with pumpkin ales. It's a weird thing. I've got an Excel spreadsheet that I track. I'm up to about 120. Every year I can get a few more here in Ohio, so I keep adding to that. When it's not in season, of course, I'll take the dankest Imperial double IPAs I can find. So CBC Creeper is a good one. And lastly, for those of you who have known me longer than just a few minutes here, that was me. That is legit my hair, not fake, not a wig. That is my hair, and that is my COVID story. And I'm sure you guys all have a COVID story as well. All right, just a quick plug here to my lawn. Look at that. Come on now. You see that? I mean, it's amazing. That's a 10 out of 10. And so I killed it all with Roundup glyphosate. So that bottom right picture there is when it's dead. It looks good dead, doesn't it? All right, enough about my lawn. You guys are here for PWAs. So let's jump in and talk about the cross-platform mobile race. We're going to get into the code here, so I don't want to stick too much onto this, but just back in the day, we walked to school in the snow, uphill both ways. You know, iOS came out, 2007, revolutionized the world. You guys know this. We all carry the phones in our pocket here, but you know, Objective-C was the language. Later, Swift came around in 2014. Year after that, in comes Google. Of course, it's history now, but you know, Java, later Kotlin was the language. So there's a trend here, like the initial language wasn't good enough, so we got to switch to another language. I'm not sure what happened there, but and then let's, of course, not forget our friends. They made a run at it, didn't they? They really did. They made a run, it didn't work, and then they rebooted and made another run, and that didn't work either, but they lasted longer than Silverlight. I'll say that. Pretty much the next day, got Android, got iOS, a bunch of developers decided, I don't want to use the development platform that's built for this mobile device. I'm going to go create a new one. Objective-C is too hard. Java is now part of some weird lawsuit. So in comes the cross-platform race. Now, I've got a bunch of them up here, some oldies and goodies. This doesn't include everything. You probably got your favorite cross-platform. Square that's not up here, but you know, a few of them here. I'll talk a little bit more about Apache Cordova because it's pertinent to the PWA discussion. But who's heard of Taco, that bottom right one? Not one taco person? Oh, you're in for a treat. So Apache Cordova. Going to briefly explain why this works because it's important to the PWA discussion. But Apache Cordova, when it first came out, was revolutionary. You've got a bunch of companies that have web developers, because at the time, right, we were all writing web code, and they want to do HTML, CSS, JavaScript. They want to bundle it in an application, render it in a web view, but doggone it, they need to have access to native device features. So what did Apache Cordova solve? Boom. Added these plugins, created a framework so that I can write JavaScript that interops out to some native code that someone wrote for me. Maybe it was the Apache Cordova Foundation. Maybe it was someone else on GitHub. I would go out and do the native functionality and then return back to my JavaScript code. So this was awesome back in the day. No native code needed, and it worked for most of the platforms at the time. Our company wrote quite a bit of Apache Cordova apps back in the day. All right, here's TACO. So TACO actually stands for Visual Studio Tools for Apache Cordova. These guys were creative. Apache Cordova came around soon after the mobile platforms came out. Visual Studio was the Microsoft guys were a little late to this, but then created it. So they created a tooling built into Visual Studio that allowed us to use Angular JavaScript with Ionic for the look and feel and the back end. And they called it TACO. And we were happy, really happy. Funny story, it didn't last long. But I remember being on a project team, and we had the one MacBook there that would do the builds for the iOS stuff. And we could all shoot over builds to it, do a build, get it back, and then debug all there. That was great until you get 10 developers all trying to send commands to the MacBook. Wasn't quite enough. And then, of course, let's not forget our friend Xamarin, or Xamarin Forms, or Maui. I think I heard a few people are doing a Maui talk after this. For me, when it came to Xamarin, our company did this quite a bit. C# and XAML, for me, equals nope. Not at all. Who else? Show of hands. Any .NET developers avoided XAML for all these years and still have not taken the time to actually learn it because you don't want to? A few. Yeah, a few. Kind of had to, but with Blazor, not anymore. It goes away. So I was able to skirt it for all those years. Okay, quick aside, because we're talking about the death of mobile apps. I'm not talking about games. I'm not talking about CPU intensive or companies that really want to have that connection with you where they want an app in the App Store. This is line of business apps. Majority of what we write are for clients that need they've got field resources that need to go out and do inspections on various things. So that's the type of apps I'm talking about here. All right, let's jump in. PWAs. Who's doing PWAs today? Not many, not many. Okay, who's doing mobile apps? Who's writing apps in the app stores? Okay, more. I'm probably wrong then. Okay. The one slide that I'll actually read here, because I think it's good, per Mozilla, a progressive web app is an app that's built using web platform technologies. Okay, we said we want to be able to do that. JavaScript, CSS, HTML. That provides a user experience like that of a platform-specific app. Okay, we're headed in the right direction here. Like a website, PWA can run on multiple platforms, not just one, from a single code base. Awesome, loving it. Like a platform-specific app, it can be installed on a device. We'll talk about installability. Can operate with offline and in the background, and can integrate with the device and other installed apps. Okay, checking all my boxes. I love this. So in a nutshell, if I were to take what is PWAs and put it all together, back to that Apache Cordova, what if I could take these plugins that are there that some other developer wrote for me in Swift or Objective-C or Java or whatever it is. What if I can just take those and squish all those into the HTML5 spec? And that's it. Brilliant. Over the years, PWAs have been around for quite a long time. Certainly not the first talk about PWAs. But for me, our company, where we are, they've got to the point now where we're all in. We've started down this path, and I'll talk about some of the key features, the native features that have been added into the spec that have really made a difference. Okay. I don't know how that looks up there. It's probably a little small here, but it's okay, and it's probably out of date. Have you been to whatcanthewebdo.today? Because it's a pretty cool website. I recommend you go there, check it out. This is updated with basically everything that the PWA spec is supporting. There's a lot of green boxes or checks that says yes. It's surprising like how much the web can do. Now, I'll caveat that with, it'll say yes with a green check, but then you go in it, and Safari never supports any of this stuff, so it's always... But Android, Chrome, they're on top of it. I've got a cool, I probably won't get to this in the demo section, but I'll have the code linked up here so you guys can get access to the code, but you can access the battery on a device using JavaScript, or using PWAs, which is kind of cool. For a application that's syncing in the background, you might want to know where the battery life is and maybe a warn a user if they've got a lot of work to do. So it's one of the new ones here that, relatively recent ones, that's on the list. Okay, so why do we actually need PWAs? Why is it important to clients? Why is it important to us as developers? Well, to me, the important part I hear is no app store. And there was a day, you guys probably remember this, when, you remember the slogan, there's an app for that. There's an app for that. Well, like, it's app overkill. Like, I don't want to go install your app and manage updates, take up space, CPU on my device. I don't want that. I just want to be able to go transact however I want to transact. And if it's a PWA that pops up a little installed there, okay, that's fine. But I don't want an app. And a lot of clients, a lot of people we're working with also want the same thing. No app store. In addition to that, we've already talked about a few of the other things here. Standardized APIs, access device native functionality, web technologies. And I'll be honest, there's a lot more web developers with web skills than native tech devs. Back to that Safari thing. Did anyone hear this or was part of this last year? Yeah, iOS come out and said that Apple said, they're not going to support PWAs. They turn it off. And of course, everyone was in a big tizzy and found out it was just an EU thing with the regulations over there. And there was enough backlash that they turned them back on. So this is no longer a thing. I was getting this talk already, and I didn't know about this. And I had a friend tell me about this. I'm like, oh, crap, I might as well just throw this away. But no, we're safe. We're safe. All right, here's where we are. Get my laser pointer out here. So we talked about native mobile applications. We talked about cross-platform hybrid applications. I didn't really go into cross-platform native, but essentially at build time, you're compiling it down to an app that runs in a native format on the device. Maui and a few other things are examples of that, or Xamarin. Many out there. We've talked about PWAs. Okay, hold on to your seats, because we're going to get into WebAssembly and then ultimately Blazor WebAssembly, which is Microsoft's .NET version of WebAssembly. And you'll hear the term WASM. And if you've heard that from someone, you're like, "Wait, you having a stroke? What are you trying to say there? What? WASM is short for WebAssembly. But quick aside here, if you've noticed, I use a lot of Bitmojis in my talks. And been talking for quite a few years here, and every time I do a new talk and put my Bitmojis in there, I think to myself, do I need to put more wrinkles in this Bitmoji? Or do I just keep lying to myself and keep it young Heath? So I've got some crow's feet there and had to add it in here, but I'm embracing it. Okay, WebAssembly. As the name kind of wants you to think, all right, it's a portable binary code format. They want you to think assembly, but it's not really assembly. To me, it's more like MSIL or bytecode. So these are the things when you compile .NET, it compiles down to MSIL and then runs on the target framework or through the framework on the device that you have. So I'd say it's probably closer to that than it is the actual assembly. But a couple things it gives us. One, it uses a stack-based virtual machine embedded within the browser. So we're getting it like near native speeds. Near native speeds, not exactly native speeds. And it's fine and dandy, but you're telling me, Heath, I've got code that runs on a device. Isn't that dangerous? In a browser? Isn't that dangerous? The magic of this is that you get the safety of the browser sandbox environment. So you're not breaking any of the rules by running your .NET code in a browser, following all the rules, the safety rules that are built in there in that sandbox environment. So that's important. And just, so this is, I got this off Wikipedia, I think, just to give you a little idea. It's C, not C#, but you've got some C code on the left. I've never actually, the middle there, this .wat text format, with Blazor WebAssembly, you never actually see this. This doesn't get sent down to the browser, but it's a middle step here, I guess some people can look at, or code can look at, analyzers can look at. This is ultimately what gets compiled and sent down to the devices, .wasm files, which is the binary format. But you can see here, it kind of looks like assembly, kind of looks like MSIL, but this is WebAssembly. Okay, why is this cool? Well, I don't understand. Like, okay, I can do this, but imagine this. What if they took the .NET runtime, squished it into WASM, and now you can run .NET in the browser? Now, of course, you got to be a .NET fanboy to be able to find this cool, and I am. So enter ASP.NET Core Blazor. I think they've simplified that a little bit, taken off the core, but with this, you can have your cake and eat it too. And the sell here is that if you're a company, you've got a lot of developers, you're all in on Microsoft, all of your back end, you're using ASP.NET Core everywhere. You probably got some old school websites using MVC. You have to do JavaScript. You've had to over the years because you just did. That's how you did the web. And begrudgingly, a lot of developers, I'm not saying everyone here, I love Vue.js as well, so I'm a JavaScript fanboy. But a lot of companies, they like that investment in .NET and want to use those skills, leverage those skills, even have reusable libraries across client and server. And ASP and Blazor gives you that, right? So it's appealing. So we're seeing quite a bit more of Blazor in our work here because companies want to embrace that investment. So I run C#, or I write .NET code in C#, runs in a browser. This is a web tech skill set. Now I can deploy this to a device like my phone or a Windows machine, a desktop. We already established it executes at near native speed, so pretty fast. It's not interpreted. And probably the coolest part of this that comes with Blazor, but it's now across a lot of products that Microsoft has, is it's component based. I'm going to show you the code here, but you write most of your code in Razor files, the front end code. And components have been all the rage for quite a long time now. I joke, if you looked at Vue.js and looked at a Blazor file, Razor file, you look pretty darn close. They really do. Only you don't have the muckety-muck of the JavaScript there. You just have the elegant syntax of Razor and C#. All right, some of the variants here, because there's it's a little confusing. I think they've cleaned this up with .NET 8 that came out in November, but there's a lot going on when you say the word Blazor. And just a few things here. Blazor server. So imagine this. I've got that component, that Razor file. That gets served up. I'm not WebAssembly here, by the way, not WebAssembly. But I've got it there in the browser. I create a SignalR connection. I send, over that SignalR connection, I send what's being updated, what's being clicked, whatever interaction is happening. That gets compiled, and the results get diffed, sent back down to the browser. It's a very odd model. I've never done this. We've never done this. But in .NET 8, they kind of embrace this a little bit better. We'll get back to that. And then Blazor WebAssembly. Same thing, only you don't need a server, right? Everything runs in the browser. All of your .NET code is there. And then they had the term hybrid. I don't think you can go to their website and find this now, but initially they called this hybrid. Similar thing, but I take that component, and by the way, this is the same component. I can write the same C# component and run it in any of these modes here. But this is rendered in that native hosting shell. Shells could be a WPF application on a Windows desktop. It could be WinForms. It could be using .NET MAUI, Android, iOS. So these are native applications. So a lot of variants here, but .NET 8 came out, really cleaned this stuff up, and gave us a way to do rendering modes dynamically. this is really cool. It doesn't really pertain to the death of mobile here, but I wanted to give you just a quick side here, because given a component, so a .razor file, how do I turn that Razor C# HTML syntax into something that the browser can understand? Well, I can do that statically, tell it just do it on the server, generate HTML, send that down to the browser, you're done. Or I can get into things called interactive mode. So I can do the interactive Blazor server, which we talked about with the Signal R. I can use just straight WebAssembly, or this is the cool one here, interactive mode. So imagine you've got a home page, and you want that thing to load fast. Has anyone done a Blazor application WebAssembly? Okay, the little spinny of death, that's annoying. It's got to download the .NET framework, all your WebAssembly files, the DLLs, all that. You're going to have it. It's just part of the price you have to pay. But to help solve that, imagine you got a web page, your dashboard. You can pre-render it on the server, get part of that, or maybe all of that page in HTML, so it's quick. It loads really fast. Secretly behind the scenes, using Signal R, it downloads the .NET framework with your WebAssemblies, your DLLs, so that from that point on, now you're running purely in WebAssembly. So it's kind of the best of both worlds if you get this right. Now, you wouldn't do that on every single page, but main dashboard pages would probably be a good example of that. Okay, sum it all up. Why is mobile dead? Okay, firstly, PWA. There's a lot of native features in the browser, and I'm going to show you an example here of an inspection app and talk through some of the features that I think are the reason we don't need to build a mobile app anymore. WebAssembly. I can run code at near native execution speed now. It's not an interpreted model. It's quick. And for me, again, a Microsoft .NET fanboy, I get to write .NET code in the browser. I don't have to mess with JavaScript anymore. Sort of, kind of. All right. You guys want to see some code? All right. I got a lot of examples here. I should be able to get through all of them. We'll see how quickly we get through them. But I'm going to leave this up here. Take a picture of this if you want this. Good news and bad news. Actually, I'll do the bad news first. Bad news is there's no Wi-Fi in here. I could do a hotspot on my phone. I didn't want to trust it here, so push notifications and a few of the things that require network access, I'm not going to be able to demo, but I'll talk through it. That's fine. The good news is the first bullet there. This is a fully offline capable app. It needs to be that. So I get to demo that, and that's to be easy to demo because there's no network connection here. But what have we got here is a race car mobile inspection app. In addition to my lawn hobbies, I also race. That's actually my car up there. It's an Evo, if you guys are familiar with cars. So this is an application. It's built in Blazor WebAssembly. It's a PWA. It's used for inspectors who go out and evaluate a car before a big race. So inspections. It's a real thing. Happens. Oftentimes, you pull your car up and you're out in the middle of nowhere, way away from the track. There's no Wi-Fi there, so it needs to be fully offline capable. Also, some of this stuff I'm kind of making up here, but they need to be able to download and store files ahead of time when they would have an active connection to use at the job site as during the inspection. So let's call them standard operating procedures. They need to be able to display rich media in the app. Need to be able to take pictures. If they got an issue and they need to take a picture or even a video of your car, save that offline, and then eventually, when they get back online, upload this up to the server. And then lastly there, that's what I just talked about, is leveraging a background sync to periodically upload and complete inspections when the network is back together. So there's the link. You can try to follow along here, but again, I'm not connected to the Wi-Fi. But in the application, when you install it, there's a link to the GitHub, so you can look at all my crappy code. It's conference.code, so right, you don't try to make it pretty, you just try to make it work. All right, so let's walk through the code here. And I'm going to leave the PowerPoint in this format here. Okay, probably a little small there, but when I get into the code view, I'll zoom in as much as I can here. But when you first open this up in Visual Studio, this is a plain vanilla .NET application. I've got a server, a client, and something called a shared. So if I go to the server, as the name says here. If you look at this, I can open up any of these. If you're familiar with ASP.NET MVC, we've got a controllers folder. We've got pages if you're into the CS HTML file thing. This is just a straight up ASP.NET file new project. That's all it is. But there's some magic going on, of course, or it wouldn't work exactly. So if I go to program.cs, let me zoom in there. Is that big enough? Can you guys see the text? Or okay. All right. This is program.cs. I'm booting things up, adding my services in here, getting things all together. And if I go down here, right there, use Blazor framework files. It's that simple. It really is. Adding that and then a reference back to the client project inside of the server, it knows now I need to serve up these, create the Blazor application, serve up these WASM files as part of the server application here. The magic happens here because the comment above says the magic happens here. No other magic going on. But that's it. I mean, it's kind of boring. The server application is just a plain old server application. So it's easy to add Blazor WebAssembly support to pretty much any website you have out there. Now, we'll talk about the client, but both the client and server use this shared. And the cool part of this is just C#. They're just POCOs. It's not a special type of C#. It's not something that only runs in WebAssembly but doesn't run on a server. This is just regular C#. And I can create, if I have DLLs or projects that want to pull in NuGet packages, I can bring them in and use them. There's very few limitations on what can be pulled down and run in Blazor WebAssembly. Now, I'll say be careful. Don't put secrets in there because that code can be decompiled. It's on the browser, so anything there in the browser, someone's going to be able to get that code and look at. But if you've got C# code and reusable libraries that you want to use, and it's going to run in the browser, or it runs on the server, it can probably run on the browser as well. All right, so let's look at our star here. So the Blazor WebAssembly application here, the project. And again, there's some magic going on here, because if you're familiar with the hosting model that came out in .NET Core years ago, .NET Core 3.1, I think, everything's done with this builder thing. Well, we've now got a WebAssembly host builder, and this one's running in the browser here. It doesn't have to run in the browser. It can run in any host that runs WebAssembly. Just so happens for this one, we're running it inside of a browser. But again, it's just special. I know it. Down below here, this is all similar to what you'd see in any other .NET application. I'm adding services, setting up a database, and then I'm just running the web builder. So pretty simple stuff. Let me show. Okay, so it's a web application. So where does it start? What does it actually load? And if I go into my www root, there's an index.html. Simple enough. This is it. So it's going to load this into the web view. And you can see here pretty standard stuff, HTML. And then we get to the last piece of magic here is this blazor.webassembly.js. Okay, I went into the browser once and opened this file up and looked at it. Holy cow. These Microsoft guys are smart. They're very nice. They write a lot of code for you. There's some serious magic going on with this. This is what's creating that connection in the back end, booting up WebAssembly, setting it up so you can make JavaScript interop calls if you have to write JavaScript, which sometimes you do. Getting the downloading the .NET framework, this does a lot. So including that is pretty important. In addition to that, we'll come back to this, but I kind of alluded to this. There are times when from .NET you need to call out to C# or to JavaScript, and sometimes from JavaScript call back into your .NET code. Super easy with Blazor. And I've got a JavaScript function here that shows you how to do that file. Okay. So I mentioned this is using components. So show of hands, who's familiar with the components? Yeah, all the front-end frameworks are component-based. Let me open up and show you what it looks like inside of Blazor. So I mentioned these are .razor files, and I'm going to open up the home page. So routing is super simple when it comes to Blazor. A lot of JavaScript frameworks have a separate routing file that you need to include. It's simple here. All I need to do is put @page and put a URL. Now, I can have parameters up here. I can have all kinds of good jazz as you'd expect. But basically, if the browser sees this, I navigate to this page here. Now, the page indicates that it's a page and not a component that's going to be embedded in your application. But that's routing in a nutshell. And if I scroll down and you look at the syntax of Razor, this is still the Razor that we used for MVC. ASP.NET MVC when that came out in, 2008, 2009 timeframe, maybe even earlier than that. Very similar syntax. It just got better over the years. So it's basic HTML. Don't mind my crappy code here, by the way. Intermixed with C#. So if I want to do an if-else, I just do an if-else. It's as simple as that. If I want to do a for each, you know what? I just do a for each. So I'm writing .NET code within my C# here. And then oftentimes you need to, well, not many times, you need to handle click events. So if I've got an on-click here, I've got this thing called logout. What is that? If I scroll down, that's just a method down here. So doesn't this look like Vue.js? Kind of does. You got your code at the bottom, your HTML there. You can, if you need to include CSS, you can do that. I don't have it here, but they in the Visual Studio they're kind of embedded underneath. So if you have a scoped CSS, it's there. But from here, I say when you on-click, call this method, and then just do C#.NET stuff. And if I don't want to write a method, if it's just something inline, I can say, okay, here it is. Here's my Lambda. Just do an inline snippet of C# code, and I do it there. As you'd expect with any component-based framework, there's parameters. So pass in, so props down, event up. I have an event here. I can fire this event for parent components to listen into that event and then respond to changes to the child. And also pass in parameters from the parent to the child. So everything you'd expect out of a component-based framework, just in C#. Then lastly, it's a component tree. So if I go into shared and look at main layout here, you can see I can put components in components. Very similar to format to what you see in like Vue.js. You just say, I've got a nav menu component. I'm going to pass in this property is logged in equals is logged in, which is down below. And I can F12 that to open it up. Or you can see it's just right here, nav menu.razor. It's another file. And this one has nav link, which is something that's built into Blazor. So you can imagine it's just a big tree of components. So very familiar to most front-end frameworks Blazor is. That was very Star Warsy. Okay, let's talk about installability. I don't know what happened to my thing down here. So installability. Unfortunately, because there's no Wi-Fi here, I'm not connected. I can't actually show you this, but I've put a picture there. I promise you it did install. Pops up. So this is the application. And let me go to my desktop here. Isn't that cool? I have a Star Wars theme, of course, just for this event here. But there's the application. So I've got an icon there. It's down here. It looks like any other application. When I click it to run it, it launches. That's the little spinny of death kind of thing. But it's quick, right? So this pops up, and this is my installed inspection application. Now, it is running in a browser in Chrome, but they've removed all the browser stuff, the muck that's in there. So a typical user doesn't know much about apps versus Chrome versus any of that. We just think this is any other application they use. Outside of having this little puzzle piece extension thing. I'm not sure how to get rid of that, but if you know, let me know. So this is our application. And again, I got some race cars here. It's installed. It's running locally with no network. You can see down here, I'm not connected to anything. Let me log in. And a couple things here. As an inspector, I'm assigned inspections. So I've got these inspections that I need to do. And I will show you the first one here that's already been done ahead of time. This one, when I went out and did an inspection, I needed to capture the lat long of where this car was sitting at when I did the inspection. I don't know why, just to prove that you can capture lat long, which has been around for quite a long time in the PWAs spec. And then if you've ever taken a lat long and say, let's make a link out to the maps application on that device, it's kind of annoying. They have a geo scheme that you can use that's supported by some things, but in most cases, you need to have a specific Android versus Apple scheme to be able to launch the Maps app. But with the inspection, I could go through tires, chassis, body, check things, put in comments here. I can upload images. So I've uploaded an image of, this is my tire. I can capture media while I'm out. So this is me on a couch. With a weird pumpkin ale shirt, by the way. So I've captured video and I've recorded a awkward video here where I completely got my thumb out of the picture and had to put it back in. So all this is offline. All this data is living in the browser. None of this is in a special folder I have somewhere that I have access to with WebAssembly. All of this is packaged up in the sandbox safety of the Blazor WebAssembly application. And then lastly, I've got, I mentioned standard operating procedures. So these are files that I've downloaded ahead of time for, I've got PDFs, JPEGs, WAVs, MP3s, or MP4s, everything you'd expect. So this is the app installed. And how does the installation work from a code perspective? It's actually pretty simple. If you've done PWAs, you know when you're working with a PWA, you get pretty involved with what's called a service worker. Service worker is your friend until it's not, and then you go do a Google search on how to fix it and what code to copy paste in there. So I've got a lot of code in here that's probably pretty ugly that I've pasted in for web searches, but it's your friend that does all the background work for you. And in this case, for installability, I have an event here that says, okay, if a user, it pops up in the browser, say, do you want to install this app? They say yes. Okay, I have an event here that handles that and says, okay, this user wants to install my application. What do? Well, I didn't write any of this code. This is all code written by Microsoft, those really smart guys and gals. But this is it. It downloads everything offline. So it sets up your cache, so that way the next time you launch the application, it's all there available. And if you look at offline assets to include, what's new? So you see HTML, JavaScript, JSON, things you'd expect, but DLLs, right? .NET assemblies, WASM files from Blazor. So it's going to take those and store them offline for you for the next time you run the application. All right, so we talked about a little bit about offline support. I showed you in here basically how the offline is working. You saw it working offline. And oops, that's not where I wanted to go. So the next thing up is push notifications. Now, unfortunately, I can't do push notification here, so you're going to have to trust me. But if I come here and show you, again, back to this trust thing, that's it. That was a couple days ago. I don't know if you can see the date there, but so that is a Windows push notification. But if you had this on an Android app or an iOS app, it's the same push notification you get from any other app. It comes in like a push notification. It looks like a push notification. It's push notification, right? It looks like a duck, quacks like a duck. It's probably a duck. So that is a push notification. And how do I handle that, and how does this work? If I look inside of my, again, back to the service worker code here, I've got a couple of these methods here. And I've got a push here where I can take this, the push is coming in, I can take this and show the notification with a lot of different variants. So this is, every time the native device is coming out with new things you can do with that push notification. The PWA lags, of course, but they're getting further along where you can do quite a bit of interactivity with that outside of just showing, the app icon for them to click on. But this is the pop-up that shows up when a push notification comes in, and then I handle the click event on this to just show my inspections. So in this case, one comes in, you click on it, launches the application, and just goes to the My Inspections page. But with push notifications, there's something else I want to show you here because there are times, actually quite a few times, where from .NET code you need to go out to JavaScript. It's just the reality of the situation. There's not enough Blazor plugins and NuGet packages out there to do everything I needed just yet. So let me show you how that works, because it's actually really simple. If I go to any application, and I am on sync. So this is the sync page where if you're actually connected to a network, you can click sync and it will go download everything that's changed. Actually, I didn't want to go there. I meant to go to inspections. So this little icon here. So the register for push registers your device for a push notification. But I got to run a little snippet of JavaScript to be able to do that and then call back to set it up in my Blazor WebAssembly application so I can have the data stored. So that's all done in JavaScript. So if I scroll down here to the code section, there's a couple things that are important here. So register for push notifications. So this is that button click event. I need to call out the JavaScript. Super easy. Again, Microsoft and great infinite wisdom provided us this in-process runtime object that I can inject to any of my components. So it's injected up here at the top. And from that, I can say invoke void async, the function name of my JavaScript function, and it just does it. And in this special case, I've passed it a reference back to my .NET object, this. So Heath, where does this function live? Where is it? So that is what I showed you before. Inside of the index.html, I've included a JavaScript file, really ugly one, called inner-out functions. And here's all the ugly JavaScript code I had to write to make this work that plugs back into .NET. So the register for push is here. And if anyone's not done used Vapid IDs to do push notifications, it's really easy to do. You don't have to have a special service or a tool or anything like that. You can do this completely out of the box. And essentially, it's giving you you've got a server key, and then it calculates a client key. You store that, send it back to your server, and then you can make that connection for push notifications. I'm way oversimplifying it, but it's actually really easy if you just go do a Google search for Vapid push notifications. So I'm calling this register for push from .NET, out of .NET. Now I'm in JavaScript. I do all this ugly JavaScript stuff. Eventually, I need to call back out to my .NET code. So since I passed the instance, the .NET instance, to this component, it's simple. Now I can say the other way, okay, invoke this method. And this is the register for pushback notifications callback on success, which is conveniently here. All I need to do is put this attribute that says it's JS invocable. And then given this, now I can do all the server stuff I need to do, save this device wanted to register for push notifications, save their ID there, that way you can call back to them later in the future. So that is push notifications, and that is calling out to JavaScript code and calling back into C# code. Done with that one. All right, consumption of media files. This is a simple one because it's not really part of the PWA spec. This has been around for a long time. We see it on ad websites often. But if I go back to the SOP page, all of these, I mentioned they're offline, but I can click on these and view them. So I'm loading these from the browser, IndexedDB in particular. And I can, God, Heath, why didn't you put a back button on there? So you can see this is all just standard. I can listen to, just in case if you're a inspector and you're not sure what an engine sounds like. I don't know if the sound's going to come out. Oh, no sound. Bummer. It's an engine. It sounds good too. Probably a V8, yeah. And then just in case you're a race car inspector and you're not sure what racing is, I include a little video here where you can. So that was at Mid-Ohio and took this. Don't mind my finger in the lens. But these are all files that I've downloaded that I'm running, and it's very simple code. Again, it's not PWA code, but if I go to the file here, yeah, this is simple stuff, right? So just a video tag, image tag. I can embed PDFs, and basically setting the URL to base64 data that I've stored locally in the browser. Okay, where is this data? So let me show you. There's many places you can store the data in the browser, but let me get back to the home page here. And it doesn't look like I'm running in a browser, but if I F12 it, poof, I get browser tools. So if you go to the application tab here, here is essentially where all the data, not all of it, I've got some of it in local storage here. I don't think I have anything in session storage, but so local storage here. These are your options for storing data on the browser. But IndexedDB is where most of it is. And anyone used IndexedDB yet? Okay, one, maybe two. It's not perfect. It's basically it's a key value pair. I found a real nice NuGet package that kind of abstracts this away from me in Blazor, so using .NET. But you key value, and I'm storing JSON objects. So if I look at the inspection that came down, ahead of time I downloaded these inspections when I had an active connection to the server, and then I need to capture that data when I'm on there. So if I'm back on the page to capture inspections, the Evo here, I need to capture, did they check this box, did they check that box, these comments, that's all done here. So this is the data, simple JSON you'd see anywhere else. I've captured the geolocation, and the files themselves, the supporting media files, are here. Now, I'll say base64 data is not perfect, especially if you're dealing with very large files. This probably would break down, but with smaller chunk size files that we have here, I can store a thumbnail to show, as well as the actual data. And once I get a connection to the server, I can upload this to the server. So this is how I'm storing these files. This is how I'm storing videos, images, everything. And the standard operating procedures is just another collection here. And you can see here where I've got JSON representation of metadata with the file, with the actual file itself, I think stored inside here. Base64 data. So that's it. That's simple. All right. Geolocation and battery, device battery status. How much time do we have left? She's busy on her phone. Okay, so if we go back to the application here, and I'm going to go back to the inspections, and we're going to do a new inspection here. So I'll start an inspection. So at this point in time, I need to capture the lat long. Now, of course, it's 0, because I don't have a network connectivity. In order to capture lat long, you need to have some sort of connection. Typically, you would use your Wi-Fi if you don't have lat long on your device. Now, if you have it on your device, you're actually going to get a lat long from the device itself. But so nothing on here just yet. And let me go through and okay, this is kind of corny, but so video from CodeMash or from Stir Trek. Oops.
Video from CodeMash.
Stir Trek. It works. It works. This is all on the web, guys. This is not like a native application. I'm doing this all with very simple JavaScript, somewhat simple JavaScript, and some .NET code. So, taking pictures just as simple. Oops, that was a video. So I can take a picture and include that. And what's really cool, these are all being embedded inside of the HTML website. That's the way they look distorted and ugly. But if you're actually on a mobile device, an Android device or iOS device, This looks like a file picker because it really is a file picker. I can include a file picker in my code, just a plain old input type equals file. I think it's the type equals camera. But when I set that, the browser is smart enough to go out and launch the native application, so I get the actual good, camera and video application to launch. And then it's as simple as handling the callback that says, this is the file that the user created. So it's really, really simple from the web here to launch that, get the file in that native format. It's a lot bigger, better than my distorted image here, and then save that in base64 data. Now, in a Windows app, they kind of look ugly here, but on a mobile device, they look like a native application. Okay, and then, so I promised you battery status. Let's come back to that. Now, if I come here, and this is somewhat new, but it's probably going to blow up here. Let's see what happens. Yeah, okay, it didn't blow up. And so you can see the battery status here. I've just put the raw data in here. This only works on Chrome, by the way. Safari does not support this. But this tells me, is the battery charging, and what level is it? And if it was unplugged, I think I can unplug this. It would tell me the discharge time eventually. But it would tell me the discharge time I have before I run out of battery. Now, that could be useful, especially if you're doing a long sync process here. You've got lots of files. You may want to warn a user that your battery's kind of low here. You might want to stop. This is stuff that used to be only available to native developers in a native application. Now supported on the web, sort of kind of with Chrome only. All right, so talked about media files, talked about IndexedDB, talked about device camera and microphone, and accessing device files. I didn't show this, but it's just as simple. If I go into an inspection here and want to upload a file from my device, I can do that. Now, if you're on a mobile device and you want to upload from the gallery app, that's simple. And I've got an example here that doesn't work on a Windows machine, but works on a mobile app where you can launch the gallery app and the user can pick a file from the gallery app if that's how they want to do it. Or pick something directly from their file manager application. So in this case, they can pick a file and I can upload it up. So very simple. We've had this for a very long time on device application, mobile applications. Now it's available on the web within the sandbox confines. It's read only, not write. So that's back to that sandbox. You can bring in files with a user permission. I didn't say this, but I'll preface that all the native functions that are on here, the user's going to get those prompts that say, do you want to allow the device or the website to do this? Do you want to allow it? So it's all these are back behind that little prompt that pops up, which you need to give access to. And I believe we can see those somewhere in here. Yeah, so in Chrome, this is how it shows up. Okay, we talked about that. All right, last topic here, and this is, so we're talking about the reasons why I think mobile's dead, kind of wrapping it up here. And we get to background workers. I was so excited about this, guys. Background workers are going to solve all the problems where I'm kind of connected to the web, but not. I'm out, I'm offline. I get back in. My device is now connected. I want to push a background sync and just have it do its thing. It doesn't quite work like that. Mobile device manufacturers are very protective about what runs in the background. So there's a couple options here. Most of the devices support this. Chrome certainly does. You can read all about it. I've included a link here that's a really good link from Microsoft that explains when you'd use each one. So a sync is, the example they give is you've got a Outlook, right, running as a PWA, and you want to send that an email, so the user clicks send. They don't have a network connection, so that email request to send sets in the background in your outbox. Eventually, you get connectivity, and behind the scenes, the service worker sends that for you on your behalf. Okay, it works well for that. Problem is, it needs to be really small. If you try to save data back there to send that's large, you'll likely run into issues. Or if you have mission critical things that need to be synced, you're not guaranteed to send that in any sort of timely fashion. So while sync is cool, it's not exactly what I thought it would be or what we can do with native applications. Periodic sync. Okay. Similar concept where I want to wake up the application, check to see, are there new inspections out there to download? Or is there new data here? Can I just make a call, make a poll, make a request, and then download that data? Okay. That's what a periodic sync is built for. And it kind of works until I read into the fine details. Again, these device manufacturers are very protective of that battery. And you running things in the background impacts that. So they score your application. And you can read all about it, how the browsers score it. And it says, okay, a user uses your application every day during these times and not during these times. And okay, getting through all the muckety-muck, periodic sync for the case that I had here, let me periodic sync once a day. That's it. Probably okay if you got a news feed, you want to download it 3 in the morning and have ready to go in the morning. But for purposes of this, I wanted to be able to check at least hourly, maybe every couple hours. You can't do that. You can tell it to do it hourly, and it's like, haha, that's a suggestion. I may not do it. And then fetch is kind of a background thing. So fetch is used for, you see, actually quite prevalent now on websites. It downloads files in the background, but gives you the prompt at the top, the native bar to let you know that it's downloading something. So again, all built in, kind of experimental. Mostly works on Chrome only at this point. Still work in progress. Has a lot to go. But so I'll say a little disappointed, but I do have examples in the code of how all this works. So if you've downloaded the code and check it out, you can take a look at it. Okay. Well, that is it. So hopefully you appreciated this. That is my dog, by the way. Mini poodle. I didn't know they came in many sizes, but they do come in many sizes and full sizes. But connect with me on LinkedIn. Stop by our booth. Again, if you want to, I love to talk shop. We got quite a few people there. Or let's be honest, if you just want a T-shirt, I'll give you one of those too. We have the Eat, Sleep, Code T-shirts, so we're into that as well. But again, right at time. So thank you for coming. Appreciate it, and we'll talk.